Alright, first off, once a Kalal Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Salutations to the Akim out there pushing this word now, sincerity. Now, truth, this is Baraka Bash from James Jamaica camp. And this lesson is going to be based on, homosexuality in Judaism and in Israel, present day Israel. That state down there that commenced in 1948 with the Balfour Declaration, right? So pretty much that we know that the law, in prescribed pertaining to Leviticus chapter 20 and verse 13, pretty much outlaws homosexuality, and there are other instances in the law that outlaws homosexuality. Romans 1, speaks about men who have affection one toward another and burning their lust one toward another, doing those things which are unseemly. Seeing, so we know that the scriptures and the most are against it because it's an abomination. However, the so-called Israelis, the so-called Jews who are nothing but the Amalekites, and right throughout the world, different races or nations or lineages are converting to Judaism. But we're speaking about the ones who are down there right now in Israel, claiming to be the true Jews, claiming to be the descendants of the holy men whom the scriptures speak about, but who are in actuality, committing nothing but folly and profanity in the Holy Land, right? And one of the examples of the folly that they commit in the Holy Land is the folly of and the abomination that is homosexuality, right? And it's pushed, it's celebrated over there. One of the biggest gay pride celebrations happens over there in 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 Tel Aviv. I believe it's every June during Pride Month. They have the biggest homosexual, LGBTQ, march, and celebration over there in Israel. But this article that I wanted to read from is called "Homosexuality and Judaism: A Brief History," and it goes all the way back to pre-slavery times, and it gives you a history of how the Phoenician nations and pretty much how the Canaanite nations, the Egyptians, and other ancient people dealt with homosexuality. How the ancient Hebrews, the Israelites viewed homosexuality, and how that changed coming up to Greek captivity, Roman captivity, which we know that Roman and Greek captivity pretty much promoted sex among sex with young boys. Older men having sex with young boys, and interestingly enough, in the Talmud, it's noted also in the article. I'll post the article in post production, brothers can read it too. There's some bones, but there's milk, there's meat that you can pick from the bones. There's a commentary on the fact that having sex with boys under the age of 9 is not explicitly prohibited in the Talmud, right? There are some rabbis who suggest that a man who commits such an offense should be flogged, but it's not outright prohibited for a man to have sex with a boy that's under the age of 9. But we're going to fast forward to a little bit after the Jewish state of Israel was created with the Balfour Declaration, and we're going to jump to about 1953, right? But before that, there was a British mandate that existed in Israel, you know. So pretty much when it just started, certain British laws applied, to the Jewish state, so-called Jewish state, and one of those was the laws against sodomy, right? But then a few years later, I'm gonna read from the article now. It says when the mandate ended, which is a British mandate, when the mandate ended, the state of Israel adopted, among others, its sodomy law. But a few years later, in 1953, Attorney General Ahim Cohen, who was born and raised in the liberal Germany of the early 20th century, instructed the prosecution not to prosecute offenders on sodomy charges. A few years later, in 1956, he instructed the police not to investigate cases of sodomy either. Right? So that was the beginning of them starting to legalize and embrace it. Right? It says, due to these directives, Israel became quite liberal in its treatment of homosexuals, Salakia, compared to the rest of the world during the 1950s and early 1960s. However, homosexuality remained technically illegal and therefore underground. Also, the police could harass homosexuals even if trials did not ensue. Come the 1960s, Western nations began to legalize homosexuality. The civil rights movement's drive to abolish sodomy laws in the United States was reported in Israeli newspapers, and a liberalized attitude towards homosexuality began to proliferate in Israeli society, through cinema, television, literature, and other media. In 1975, the first association for the promotion of gay rights was established in Israel, right? And in 1979, gay rights activists held their first demonstration in Tel Aviv. Eventually, in 1988, Israel abolished its sodomy laws. During the 1990s, Israeli society began to view homosexuality in a more positive light, right? Especially after studies began to appear in 1992 indicating that homosexuality was not a preference, gay men are born that way. Right? The fact that homosexuality could now be practiced openly led Israelis to the gradualization, gradual realization that gay men were not perverts or criminals, but normal members of society that played its part well. Right? In the United States, Reform Judaism had been embracing of homosexuality at least since 1972, but when the movement accepted the Beth Chaim Hadishim congregation of Los Angeles, the world's first gay synagogue, into its fold. In 1977, the Central Conference of American Rabbis called on state government to legalize homosexuality, and in 1990, the reform officially announced homosexuals were accepted as equal members. Right? So, what I'm bringing out this is to prove to further prove, because we've already proven this point more than once, to further prove that the men who are down there now in the land of Israel, calling themselves Jews, calling themselves the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, could not be so, right? Because the scripture clearly says, that as an Israelite, right, as a member of the nation of Israel, we are against sodomy, we're against homosexuality. However, they promote that, they promote that in Israel. Right? Also, when we go back into the land, the scripture tells us that we will be all righteous, There will be no sin. Right? How can these people be the children of the Most High, the chosen people of the Most High, when they promote such an abomination, Right? But let's get to the scriptures, and then we can close this up. We don't mean to be long. Right? So this is Psalm 50 and verse 16. But unto the wicked, seeing which is Esau, the scripture call him the border of wickedness, the people whom the Most High hath indignation forever against forever. Right? So, but unto the wicked the Most High saith, unto Esau the Most High saith, what hast thou to do to declare my statutes? Or that thou shouldest take my covenant in thy mouth? And that's what they've done, They've taken the Most High's covenant in their mouth and call themselves the true descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the people of the covenant, the promised people, the chosen people, right? And they declare themselves to be Jews, right? However, it says, seeing thou hateth instructions and castest my words behind thee, because the words say that a homosexual should be put to death because they have committed an abomination. However, they legalize it and actually pushed for its legalization before it was legalized, And now, present day, it's one of the places that celebrate gay rights and transgender rights the most, Right? It's so they hate instructions, right? When thou sawest a thief, then thou contendest with him and hast been partaker with adulterers, right? And not just adulterers, but fornicators. Well, fornication and adultery is the same thing unless you're looking at it spiritually, right? And they also consult with homosexuals, right? Let's get to another precept. This is Isaiah chapter 26, verse 10. Let favor be shown to the wicked, again talking about Esau. Yet will he not learn righteousness, but in the land of uprightness will he deal unjustly, and will not behold the majesty of the Lord. He's right now in the land of uprightness, Right now, in this present day, since 1948, the so-called white man, right, through the seed, has taken over the land of uprightness, which is the land of Israel over there in the east, right? But in the land of uprightness, Will he deal unjustly? Right? What's an example of that? Legalizing homosexuality, yo. Right? That's an example. That's the example that we're looking at in this video. Legalizing homosexuality is dealing unjustly in the land of uprightness, yo. Right? So this is talking about the wicked, right? So again, we reiterate, there is no way these men could be the true descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. There's no way these men could be the true Jews, right? If they promote these things in the land, yo. When the scripture clearly is against that, yo. Right? This is Ezekiel chapter 36, verse 5. Therefore, thus saith the Lord power, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen, and against all Idumea. Here we go again, singling out the wicked, which have appointed my land into their possession with the joy of all their hearts, with despiteful hearts to cast it out for a prey. Right? So right now, since 1948, with the Balfour Declaration that was signed after World War II, right? Esau has appointed the Most High's land, which is Israel, into their possession, right? And it goes on to say, prophesy concerning the land of Israel, and say unto the mountains, to the hills, rivers, and to the valleys, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, I have spoken in my fury and in my jealousy, because ye have borne the shame of the heathen, yo. And when you look up that word shame, let me see if I can get it, if the net will allow me to get it here, right? So the word shame is from the Hebrew kalama, right? And it says disgrace, right? It's disgraceful, the fact that you have one of the strongest gay communities over there in Tel Aviv, yo, right? It's disgraceful, confusion, right? Dishonor, reproach, shame, right? Goes on to say insult, right? Ignominy, right? And that word ignominy means public shame or disgrace, right? So they've taken on insult, ignominy, right, and reproach, right? That's what the land has borne right now. The land of Israel right now, which is supposed to be the land of uprightness, right, has borne the shame of the heathen, right? So then it moves on to say, verse 7, therefore, thus saith the Lord, I have lifted up mine hand, surely the heathen that are about you shall bear their shame. But ye, O mountains of Israel, ye shall shoot forth your branches, and ye shall yield your fruit to my people of Israel, for they are at hand to come. Right? We, the true Hebrew Israelites, the true descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the Negroes, the Latinas, the Native American Indians, and all our people who are scattered toward the four corners of the earth. Right? The true chosen people of the Most High are at hand to come, yo. Right? The prophecies are swiftly coming to pass. This war with Iran is, the mark of the beast, which the RFID microchip is. Right? The famine of the word. Right? So the brothers, damn it, I forgot. One of the brothers that one of the camps got moved up again, yo, because there's a new legislation now passed that they can't go out and restrict public areas, yo. Right? Because that's what we out there doing. We're restricting public areas, yo. So soon and very soon, they will pass a law here in Jamaica saying that we can't obstruct public walkways or the sidewalks, right? So the famine of the world is near. World War III is pretty much here. The mark of the beast is here, been here, right? So what? So we are at hand to come to the land, yo, after it gets cleansed by fire, yo, right? Let's see if there's any other precept I wanted to bring out. Habakkuk chapter 1, verse 4. Therefore, the law is slacked, and judgment doth never go forth, for the wicked doth compass about the righteous. Therefore, wrong judgment proceedeth. And one of the wrong judgment is, as we bringing out in this lesson, the legalization of homosexuality down there in the land of Israel. So that's pretty much what I wanted to bring out. I'll post the article in post-production so brothers can skim through and read through some of the nonsense that they have and some of the sensible thing that they have, right? And if so be that the spirit rests upon you, you can do a video as well. But again, Kalal Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, Hashem Kodash for giving me the spirit to this lesson. Right? Shalom to you brothers out there. Peace and blessings to the elect and the righteous men and the sisters who are listening and learning, and the apostles and the elders who continually feed us in the truth. Shalom.